This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening and welcome to the September 27, 2022 meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners for Town of North Haven. My name is Larry Lazaroff. I'm the chairman. To my left is Robin Wilson, the vice chairman. To my right is Mark Calafiore, our secretary. To his right is Commissioner Bob Hannon. Missing tonight is Commissioner Meade. May I ask for approval of the minutes of the August 23rd, 2022 regular meeting and executive sessions, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Do we have any correspondences?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. This is from Mr. Charles Sherwood. He's thanking the Chief Glenn, for allowing Lieutenant Cliff Hill to serve as a panelist that recently held a board for the position of Detective Sergeant. So thank you, Lieutenant Cliff Hill. And that is it.
Excellent. Okay. For the chairman's report, I'll be brief. We did have a swearing-in ceremony of 3 new officers, which are in the academy, which I'm sure the chief will expand upon. I'd like to remind everybody that we're approaching Halloween, and there'll be a lot of children on the road as well as adults. And please be mindful of the streets and the conditions of the streets with leaves falling down in the darkness of the evening. Again, a reminder to please lock your cars, your homes, your vehicles, your sheds, a whole bit, because obviously we have to be our own protectors as well as relying upon the police department. And I'd like to mention that our deputy, Andrew Stavridis, is at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. It's a position which is very esteemed to achieve, and we wish him well. And Chief Glenn has been there, and prior to him was Chief McLaughlin as well, and current Chief Mulhern, who's in Brantford now. So we just wish him well, and we're very proud of him, and I'm sure the Chief will expand upon that as well. That being said, I will turn this over to the Chief.
Thank you, Chairman. Not only for the holiday season with Halloween approaching, school's been in session for about a month now. Things have kicked off well and very safe in the morning, but we'd like to ask the viewing folks to keep that in mind in the morning with the school buses, in the afternoon with the school buses, as well as walkers. We have crossing guards who are employed by the police department out there every day for the certain sections of the town where the young students need to be crossed. We've been conducting speed enforcement in the school zones, and it's been going well. And as the commission knows, we have school resource officers in every school. It's a program we're very proud of, and we're well positioned there. In regards to new personnel, we have 2 recruits in the Milford Police Academy. They're on week 23. It goes by pretty fast. Their graduation will be December 15th. If you want to mark your calendars, once I get an invitation, I'll send it out to the Board of Police Commissioners to attend if you so choose. We have 2 in Meriden's Post Police Academy. They're the senior class in Meriden. They're in week 17. But believe it or not, the graduation will be a week prior to Milford's. They're going to graduate sometime during the week of December 5th. So Milford's Academy is a little bit longer. They started sooner, but they're going to graduate a little bit later. But we will have 4 recruits coming back here in December to start their field training, which we're very excited about, and we can certainly use. We have 1 recruit in the Hartford Police Academy and 1 in the Waterbury Police Academy. Both are in week 6. And we had 2 recruits in post-junior class in Meriden, and they started September 23rd. Their graduation seems like a long ways off, but you can mark your calendars. That's scheduled for the week of April 23rd, 2023. So over the next 6 months, we're going to be onboarding a number of personnel. We have 1 certified officer who we will be swearing in next Tuesday. She is a young officer from the town of Greenwich, Connecticut. And because she's a certified lateral transfer, she will not be attending the police academy. So we'll get her right into field training immediately and on her own sometime around mid-November. So that's going to be a nice boost to our personnel, our staffing prior to the holiday season, which will be a big help for our patrol division. So it's 9 additional positions within 6 months. I've been here for more than 2 decades. I don't remember ever hiring that many police officers in that span of time. So we're in good shape moving forward. Does anybody have any questions as far as new personnel or the academy, graduation dates at all? You good? Moving on to the budget, currently we're at 20.7%. We're 2.5 months into the 2023 fiscal year. Overall, we're in good shape. We're well within our self-imposed restrictions as far as the budget. Like I spoke of last month, the summer months, July and August, we spent a lot of money in overtime because of vacations. We've had a number of injuries, but we're back on track. We're in good shape. And if anybody, I know you have a detailed budget report that you get every month. Not every department in town provides their commission with that. So if you ever have any questions about that, whether it's at the commission meeting or one-on-one, please feel free to ask me. Moving on to our traffic report, we have a new correspondence from a resident regarding the intersection of Homewood Avenue and Hartford Turnpike. We received a letter of concern after a recent crash. This has been an intersection that's been troubling for a few years. We've made a number of different changes and done reviews there in the past. There's a high volume of accidents that occur there. We have it narrowed down to most of the time it's for one reason specifically. It's failure to yield to northbound traffic on Hartford Turnpike. Sergeant DePascal, as he always does, he did another review of this intersection, which he's done in the past and documented. And we're going to make one slight change. We're going to move, and this doesn't need approval from the commission, but just for your knowledge, we're going to move the stop signs and stop bars on Homewood Avenue, both westbound and eastbound. We're going to move those closer to Hartford Turnpike. So those cars that are stopping have to yield to Hartford Turnpike traffic. They can get a little closer to the intersection so they can see farther down the road to help with the sight line. So that should take place in the next few weeks. I'll report back next month to see what kind of progress that has made.
So in that area, I think in the past, we've cut down a lot of brush and then try to make these lines of sight more conducive to better visibility. And so that's it. I hope this would resolve the issue, hopefully.
We have. We've improved the sight line with the brush, as you mentioned. We've put larger stop signs in place. We added stop ahead signs to give people forewarning ahead. So we've been spending a lot of time and effort on that intersection, but it is a troubling intersection. It's not a place where we want to put a stoplight. We don't think that would be beneficial to residents, so hopefully this will improve things. Last month we spoke about the intersection of Hartford Turnpike and Tolley's Road. The commission approved looking at a study for an engineer for recommendations for either stop signs or a stop light there. Sergeant DePascal has been working with our engineering department across the street through the town to identify a company who can come out and do that evaluation, and they've been secured and they've been hired to do that. So once that evaluation is done, we'll bring a recommendation back to this commission for any potential improvements. We received confirmation for 3 new Chevy SUVs for our patrol division. This is something that most departments are having trouble with, securing vehicles. No matter what type of vehicle it is, they're more expensive than in the past, they're harder to get. So we anticipate, we have purchase orders in place, we anticipate taking delivery this December, and over the next week, hopefully we'll have bids out to upfit those vehicles. So for example, a patrol vehicle costs roughly $40,000 to purchase, but then we put in between $25,000 to $30,000 in equipment, installation fees, software. So these vehicles are about $65,000 to $70,000 when they're all said and done. So it's a 2-phase: purchase the vehicle and then upfit the vehicles. So we're in good shape this year, especially compared to last year with how long it takes to secure the vehicles. And still under traffic, we are continuing with our regional traffic enforcement. That's ongoing. It's a 6-town collaboration: North Haven, North Branford, East Haven, Branford, Guilford, Madison, just like our SWAT team and crash team. We've started this enforcement operation, and it's been well received. It allows us to increase the number of enforcement in town, a larger presence, and they rotate through the region. So we're going to continue that. We'll shut down for a few months in the winter months. It's not always the safest thing to do when there's snow on the ground to have a number of officers doing radar on the side of the road, but we'll continue throughout the fall and into the spring. Do we have any questions on the traffic report before I move on to training?
No.
Yeah, are we still doing the bike patrol?
We are. Yeah, we're pursuing that. We have talks with the training company that will facilitate that. We have quotes for the actual equipment and the bikes, and we'll line up training hopefully late fall, but latest early spring.
Thank you.
That kind of brings us into training. which is the same topic. We have 2 new school resource officers. They've both attended the basic school resource officer training program. The other 5 SROs were given an opportunity to go to an updated juvenile review, juvenile justice training program. So all 7 of our SROs are up to date with training and in good shape as they start the school year. Our in-house training officers have been working with the various police academies throughout the state, where we have 8 recruits now scattered throughout the state. They spend time there on stations days, providing role-playing participation and training at those academies. They'll continue to do that over the next 4 or 5 months now. Our SWAT team has continued to conduct their monthly training. They train at least 2 days per month, every month. They recently finished the SWAT Challenge, Connecticut SWAT Challenge. They came in the top 10 this year, which is a big accomplishment. I may not sound like it, but this is not a challenge that just has Connecticut SWAT teams. They're from across the country. There were 4 different military teams there, a competition team from Orlando, Florida, which does well across the nation. So they came in 9th place overall. Very proud of them. That's a great accomplishment.
Congratulations to them.
We've also been onboarding several new dispatchers in our communications center, still under training. 2 of those newest dispatchers completed their emergency medical dispatching training. So the EMD training allows them to function on their own without a training dispatcher next to them. So we're slowly but surely building that staff and growing that staff in our communications center, and they do a great job. We recently, still under training, purchased software called Live 911. This is something that caught the attention on social media. We are the first agency in the state of Connecticut to onboard Live 911 in our municipality. Traditional media is picking up on this, asking for interviews and getting this information out. What Live 911 does is it live streams live 911 calls into the cruisers. So the first second of every call that's answered by a dispatcher, the police officers who are on patrol can hear right away. So they can mute it if they don't need to hear it, if it's on the other side of town, isn't something that they're responsible for. But if it's something that's in their area, they can hear the address, the nature of the emergency right away. They can begin traveling there before the dispatchers even enter the information and have a chance to dispatch patrol officers. So this allows us to do a few things. First, it's a quicker response to emergencies, which is huge. It's the biggest part of the platform. It allows officers to hear background noise and key information that maybe dispatchers wouldn't pick up on, even though they're very well trained and do a great job. They're not police officers. So it gives the officers the opportunity to hear exactly what the caller is saying. And there's a mapping software that's integrated with the Live 911 software. So in the cruisers, they get an exact location of the 911 caller, opposed to a general location. So this is something we're excited about. We just rolled this out, and everyone was just recently trained over the past week, and we'll report back next month on how well received that is. So anybody have any questions on the training report?
No, just a comment that seems like an excellent idea, this new program, and it's going to help hopefully with response times and just relevant information. So I'm really happy to hear about this.
Great.
So a question, follow up on Larry's. So that 911 actually, not only from residential household, but also cell phones?
That's correct. Every 911 call that's received in our dispatch center will be live streamed right to the cruisers.
Nice. And we're the first ones in Connecticut.
We are. First ones in the state.
And so as they're hearing it in the dispatch office, that same exact thing is going
Yep.
into the office.
Yeah, so the call is live streamed right to the car, just the audio. The officers in the field aren't responsible for interacting with the call, but they can hear exactly what's going on between the dispatcher and the caller.
So I have a question actually. Okay, do you want to
No,
finish? Go ahead.
that was it. Just
No, you mentioned the 911, so from a cell phone, because one time I had to use a 911 from a cell phone, but it went to the state police barracks.
They kick it.
And then, so have things changed, or how does that work? How does the cell phone company or Verizon, whoever you use, know where to go? I mean, it's depending on where you are.
It goes by the towers. So if you're close to the highway, sometimes you'll be connected to a tower that identifies as from the highway. Other times you could be on the highway and call and be routed to North Haven. So it's done very quickly. The PSAPs, the dispatch centers, just transfer the call right away to the appropriate PSAP.
Okay. I mean, it was quick. I was just curious how it determines what happens. So,
Right,
okay.
right.
Thank you.
So if that happens, as soon as it's transferred to North Haven, our officers will be able to pick up on the audio.
Gotcha.
So in terms of recent crime and stats, calls for service, as of today, year to date, we're just about 22,000 calls for service so far compared to last year, about 20,000 calls for service, and the year before, just over 16,000 calls for service. So as I'm sure you've noticed in the news lately and what we'll talk about in detail in this report, crime is certainly up, not just in North Haven, but throughout the state. But overall calls for service are also up, not just the crime, but just the calls for service in general, everything the officers are going to. So that includes calls for service, written reports, accident reports, all the things that take time out of the officer's day. For example, vehicle thefts, we're at 48 stolen cars this year so far compared to 34 last year. Vehicle burglaries, 127 this year compared to 94 last year. And all larcenies across the board, every larceny in town, we're at 335 this year compared to 189 last year.
So the vehicles, is it, again, a large percentage of them are unlocked cars, or?
I would say a large percent are still, but
Mhm.
over the last few months, we're seeing more and more broken windows and forcible entries.
Gotcha.
Recently, we had a string of burglaries to Asian food restaurants, and at the same time, one of the owners of one of the restaurants, their house was broken into. It was Asian families who were targeted for these crimes. Detectives did a nice job. They identified a suspect, worked with other towns who also saw similar crimes in their towns, and we were able to make the first arrest in the area. So that individual will probably be arrested for a number of different crimes, but we were able to close those burglaries out with an arrest, which we're happy about.
Good job.
Is he incarcerated?
Yes.
He's locked up, okay, good.
Recently, officers this past weekend located a suspicious vehicle on the Dixwell Avenue area, on the side of the road parked. The driver appeared to be unconscious. As officers approached the car, they saw drug paraphernalia, a syringe in the lap of the operator. They thought maybe an overdose was occurring. They tried making contact with the operator. The operator put the car in drive and sped off, nearly striking one of the officers. He actually was trying to open the door to help this individual and ended up ripping the handle off the car. That's how close he was to being injured. Officers then stopped the vehicle a short time later. The driver, instead of complying, put the car in reverse and rammed two of our cruisers, causing damage. We ended up getting involved in a pursuit with this individual who drove their vehicle off the road onto train tracks, off the side of train tracks into gravel, got stuck. We were able to make an apprehension. This individual was also wanted in a number of different towns. He was a parole fugitive out of New Haven, and we held him on bond, and he is still incarcerated, but he was arraigned on our charges, numerous charges in North Haven. So it was a job well done by our officers. Nobody was injured in that incident, but they took somebody who has been committing a lot of crimes into custody, so we're happy about that.
Good job.
Who were the officers?
Officer Dahlstrom
Dahlstrom,
was the main officer, and Officer Janosko was his backup officer. Both were rammed.
Job well done.
A week prior, we also had a cruiser that was rammed, sustained significant damage to the car, no injury to the officer. Officers responded on the midnight shift to 160 State Street. It's an apartment complex on State Street for a number of different individuals breaking into cars. And to your point, that night they were breaking windows to make entry into the cars. As the first officer pulled into the parking lot, there were two vehicles, suspect vehicles. They were both stolen from other towns. One of them rammed our first arriving officer. That vehicle was disabled. We made an arrest. The second stolen vehicle got away, but we have leads on those suspects. So again, a nice job by the responding officer. Put himself in harm's way. We have some damage to the car, but the most important thing is no injuries to the officers and an arrest made. Unfortunately, it's a 14-year-old juvenile, so it's up to the judicial system to decide what the appropriate course of action is moving forward for that person.
Is the car totaled, did you say?
Not total, but
Just significant. So it's not drivable, for sure.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
About $10,000 to $12,000 worth of damage.
And where does that go?
We have insurance for that.
Yeah,
Since it's a stolen vehicle, the owner is obviously not going to be responsible for that, so
okay,
the town's on the hook for the insurance costs for the deductible.
gotcha. And the other two cars were, you said minor damage?
Fairly minor. Yeah, we don't have the quote yet on the.
Are those total too, or no?
No.
They're still out there running around?
They are.
Okay,
September 23rd, we had 2 robberies within about 15 minutes of each other. We believe it's the same suspect. The suspect used a knife. One of the robberies was very aggressive, where he actually held a knife to the throat of one of the employees during the robbery. We got an update today, and not to get too many details, but we're confident that we identified the suspect, and this is a suspect that has been committing the same type of robberies with a knife in other towns quite often recently. So we hope to make that arrest as soon as possible. In August, we had a purse snatching, at Big Y. That was a very quick investigation. Officers did a nice job. Sergeant Mills was the primary officer, and this highlights our intelligence sharing platforms that we use. He put out pictures and collaborated with detectives and investigators from other towns. They quickly identified the suspect, and an arrest was made on that one. Recently, speaking of thefts of purses in the BJ's parking lot on Universal Drive, we had an attempted theft of a purse where the elderly female actually fought for herself and pulled the purse back, and but unfortunately she fell backwards and struck her head, and she was injured. At the same time, the same suspects were able to take the purse from another female and speed off. So we're working on that crime. Obviously, it's something that we pursue with urgency. Anybody brazen enough to do something like that, broad daylight, targeting elderly females, that's the kind of person we certainly want to get locked up and in custody.
It just seems like your detectives and your PD in general is doing a good job with identifying these guys and locking them up. So, kudos to the bureau and your officers too.
Doing a great job.
Yeah.
And our investigators, our detectives work hand in hand with our patrol people.
Yeah, that's good.
They all do a great job sharing intelligence. The region is really doing an excellent job working on these cases. As these are serial crimes. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to do a purse snatching or a burglary or a robbery today, just never do it again. So that shows the importance of getting these people arrested. They're committing the same crimes in our surrounding towns and throughout the region, so we all work together. They're all doing a very nice job.
Yeah, no, keep good work. Good work, guys.
So this evening I have no request for a Benary Scholarship. Service/PR topics. Last month at the North Haven Fair, we did a dunk tank and a recruitment table that was well received. Officers did a nice job volunteering to be present and part of that. We had our recruitment team at a community resource fair on September 10th that was hosted by Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. That was well received. Officers were able to give out some swag to the kids that were there and talk to the parents, so that was a nice job spending their time there across the street at the rec center. We had 2 dates, not back-to-back Fridays, but 2 Fridays last month. We advertised and conducted tours of the department and meet and greets of our officers. They were well attended, more so than we anticipated. We had over 20 kids each time, plus their parents and family members. It was great, something we're going to revisit probably in the spring. That was a nice job, and the officers' efforts go a long way when it comes to things like that. We're going to try to resurrect a plan for a Citizens Academy in the spring, either late winter, early spring. That's something that we put on hold. Chief McLaughlin wanted to get that up and running when he was here. I think it's a great idea. Unfortunately, COVID shut that down, so we're going to try to resurrect that and put together an itinerary and advertise that to see how many people are interested and get that going. And we're going to a topic that came up today. Officer Steven Sudak, who has come up with a lot of Coffee with a Cop, the popsicle get-togethers, meet and greets. He's come up with a lot of good ideas. He asked me today if we would be interested, which I support fully. And we're going to advertise and schedule a traffic stop educational program. We're going to target 16, 17, 18-year-old residents of North Haven. We do some classroom talk on what to expect from police when you get pulled over, if you get pulled over, what the police expect from them as far as their actions, the documents they should have in the cars, and just a question and answer back and forth. And we're going to go outside into a parking lot. We're going to do some role playing and do some sample traffic stops just to let them know what it feels like if they happen to be stopped from a police officer, to try to ease their worries if they do get stopped, but also prepare them so they act appropriately and they know what to expect from police.
Terrific
Great
idea.
idea.
And that's all I have aside from the executive session.
Excellent. Any questions for the chief?
No.
None? Okay, none. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn from regular session to go into executive session for discussion of personnel matters.
So
So,
moved.
second.
All in favor?
Right.
Okay, we are back in regular session after discussing personnel during executive session. Any questions? Okay. Can I have a motion, please, for the adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.